Though you may be living for Christ, your children or children that you care about, maybe even your grandchildren, may not be. You may have done your best to share your faith when they were young, reading the Bible to them, teaching them to pray, bringing them to church, modeling the love of Christ to them, yet they strayed, pulled away by 1,000 enticements. Year after year you pray, but little seems to happen. Things may have even gotten worse. Sex, money, drugs, partying, illness, apathy, whatever it is, you know your loved ones will self-destruct if they do not find their way back to God. Perhaps you have become so discouraged that you see, by what you see, that you have stopped praying. Yet, Scripture tells us that those who hope in God will not be disappointed. Notice that it doesn't say that those who hope in God usually won't be disappointed. It flat out says you will not be disappointed. That means that ultimately you won't be disappointed in God's faithfulness, even if your children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, or neighbors are failing in school, or living in the streets, or engage in illicit relationships, or drinking themselves to death, or working so hard that they have no time for God. You may agonize over their choices and their circumstances, but you can't afford to let that agony push you into premature conclusions about where they will end up. The whole story has yet to be written. So, disappointment is nothing but a premature conclusion, causing you to stop reading before the story's end, making you abandon your hope in God, and enfeebling your ability to pray. While it is true that human beings are ultimately free to accept or reject God, your prayers may help to create a greater opening for grace to work. Wow, pretty powerful, isn't it? So basically, no matter how dismal the situation may be, no matter how far the people that you love seems to have strayed from the Lord, what is the Scripture saying? You don't give up hope in them. You just keep praying for them, and those who hope in the Lord will not be disappointed. There is a classic story of a mother who prayed for her wayward son. And I think many of you have heard this story. The story of Monica, the mother of Augustine. Now, some of you might not know even who Augustine is. Okay, let me tell you who Augustine was. Augustine was a famous bishop of the church in the city of Hippo, not hippopotamus, Hippo, in North Africa, which is called Algeria today. He lived from 354 AD to 430 AD. He was a brilliant scholar, a very influential church leader. And people have said, and scholars have said, he's considered to be one of the greatest influences in the development of Western Christianity, a lot of it through his writings. And his writings have influenced thousands of Christians and many, many Christian leaders, including myself, because even once in a while, I'll pull out some of Augustine's writings. He is the one who made famous this saying, "My soul is restless, O God, until it finds its rest in you." Isn't that cool? He was the one who made famous that statement. But you need to know a little bit about Augustine and his background. Augustine's mother, Monica, was a very devout Christian. She had 3 children. 2 of the children accepted Christ. Guess who was the most rebellious? Augustine. He was strong-willed. And he was what we in Hawaii would call a kolohe, a rascal. Liked to do his own thing. And in spite of her witnessing to her son and loving him and so forth, he turned his back on his mother's faith. And eventually he went off, because he was so brilliant, he went off to college or university and began studying. And while he was in college, he was drinking and getting into trouble, and he even found a mistress. And of course, this really broke the heart of Monica, his mother. But his mother would never give up praying for her wayward son. And not only that, but she was so determined to see him come to know the Lord that she would follow him. Wherever he would move, she would move there too. And eventually, Augustine, by the way, Augustine got wrapped up in this philosophy. Actually, it was a